Hello, welcome to Human Design Center. I'm glad that we share a common interest in human design, the science of differentiation, the art of living your life according to your unique design and genetic matrix that sustains it. You have a unique cosmic imprint, and you may start learning about your uniqueness by listing the gates of your chart. Today, you are going to learn or recap, as the case may be, about Hexagram 32, duration, continuity. The only thing which endures is change. Hexagram 32 is part of third trimester of Jupiter, Trimester of Duality, where we accomplish our purpose through relationships, connections, co-creating in relationships, according to mystical theme, measure for measure. Gate 32 corresponds to goddess Minerva, the last face of the Quarter of Duality, where purpose is fulfilled through bonding, the virgin goddess of warfare. Arts and Crafts Gates, 44. Alertness, 28. The Game Player, 50. Values, 32. Continuity. She is associated with strategic arts and crafts, such as trade and war, and she is well known for her skills as a warrior, strategist, art and craft, and business talent. Zodiac sign, Libra. Gate 32. Flows within the tribal ego circuitry, which is about offering and receiving support, about touch. It is timeless. It's not about the past or about the future. Keyword: support, giving, and receiving. Center, spleen center, which is about body awareness, total existential experience, spontaneity, health, well-being, values, immune system. Here is the whisper of instant knowing, the natural ability to sense danger and make quick decisions according to your own strategy and authority. The harmonic gate is number 54, the marrying maiden, drive, interaction in its mundane social context, but also one's mystical and cosmic relationships. Gate 32, with 54, the gate of ambition, formed of the channel of transformation, a design of being ambitious. This channel is about the pressure to climb up, to be ambitious and grow. The opposite gate is number 42, of increase, growth, the expansion of the resources which maximizes the development of full potential. Aminoacid, aspartic acid, relevant organ, spleen, tarot card associated, ace of coins, which is one of the 4 resources of the magician, major arcana number 1. Gate 32. In the 3RD trimester of bonding and co-creating, in MINERVA, forms the channel with gate 54, located in the 4th trimester of Sirius mutation spirit, connecting to Vishnu archetype. This way, aspartic acid associated with gate 32 communicates with amino acid serene of gate 54. It is relevant for the value and functioning of this gate to observe that aspartic acid is the same for the gates 28 and 32, under the castle of the same goddess Minerva. It is useful to have in mind that these 2 gates share the same amino acid, both placed within the same energy of Minerva. The 28th gate is empowering, on individual circuitry, and 32nd gate is supporting, on tribal circuitry. Gate 28th is about fear of death, to a personal level, a fear of lack of purpose, while gate 32 embodies the fear of failure of the tribe, translated also as a fear of disappearance of humans as a species. You may observe that 2 gates of Minerva, 32 and 28, as potential gates in the spleen center, need the fuel, the pressure of Vishnu from the 4th trimester. 32 needs the pressure of Serene, and 28th gate needs the pressure of Arginine. If you have one of these gates, at least for the first 4 lines, pay attention to a very real challenge of wrong behavior. If you are a 32, do not confuse your potential with the 28th gate potential or purpose. Let's talk concretely about aspartic acid, what it is, what it does in the body, and how that might actually influence your real life. This is my own research. I am not a professional in amino acids. I only try to understand the gates from this perspective. Feel free to share your knowledge in comments and to research and verify what you hear in this material. Aspartic acid is a non-essential amino acid, meaning your body can make it on its own, even if you don't get it from food. It's one of the building blocks of proteins, but it also has a few special roles beyond just protein synthesis. What does aspartic acid do in the body? Aspartic acid acts as an excitatory neurotransmitter, meaning it helps stimulate the brain. It's involved in the communication between neurons, especially in areas that manage memory, learning, and mood. It keeps the brain active, alert, and responsive. Aspartic acid plays a role in the Krebs cycle, your body's core energy-generating system, so it helps convert sugar and fat into energy. It helps in the removal of excess nitrogen from the body and supports the synthesis of other amino acids, especially those important for muscle repair, hormone balance, and immune health. A specific form, D-aspartic acid, DAA, has been shown to stimulate hormone production, including testosterone, in both men and women. This is why it's sometimes used in sports supplements to help with strength, libido, or muscle growth. But the effects vary, and it's not a magic bullet. Where do you get it? Even though your body makes it, you also get aspartic acid from foods like eggs, meat, dairy, soy products, legumes, nuts, and seeds. Here is the influence in real life and how it actually affects you. Aspartic acid helps you stay mentally sharp. Since it supports neurotransmission, it's involved in focus, memory, mental energy. If you're feeling foggy, run down, or mentally slow, it might be linked to an imbalance here. It supports physical stamina. Because it's involved in energy production, it indirectly affects your exercise endurance, muscle recovery, overall vitality. Aspartic acid helps you handle stress and change. It helps your cells produce the energy they need to cope with changes, stress, or demand, whether mental or physical. Can you have too much aspartic acid? Usually the body balances it well, but excess, especially from D-aspartic acid supplements, can sometimes lead to anxiety or restlessness since it's stimulating, hormonal imbalance, gut upset, so it's not about more is better, it's about balance. Aspartic acid is like the quiet helper in the background, making sure your body has energy, can think clearly, feels motivated, adapts to change, repairs and rebuilds itself. And most of the time, your body handles it beautifully without you needing to think about it, unless you're under high stress, malnourished, or supplementing for performance. Now, since Gate 32 is about duration, continuity, part of the channel of transformation, it's reasonable to think that aspartic acid level has some impact on our need or potential for transformation. I think that, in a subtle but real way, the need for change and transformation can be related to the role aspartic acid plays in your body and mind. Let's see what we can find to sustain this idea. 1. Aspartic acid fuels transformation on a biological level. At its core, aspartic acid is a metabolic helper. It plays key roles in energy production via the Krebs cycle, neurotransmitter activity. It's an excitatory messenger in the brain, detox and cellular turnover, hormone regulation, especially via D-aspartic acid. So physiologically, aspartic acid supports the internal engine that drives transformation, energy, brain function, repair, and hormonal shifts. 2. Biology reflects psychology. Inner shift equals outer change. Aspartic acid helps your body do things like process new information, create energy to make decisions, activate mental focus and alertness, regulate mood and motivation. So when your body is well supported and your aspartic acid function is balanced, you may feel more ready for change, mentally and emotionally. More energy equals more clarity and courage to take new steps. 3. Aspartic acid and mental agility bring psychological adaptability. Since it's an excitatory neurotransmitter, aspartic acid influences your motivation, focus, ability to think, react, and adapt. In real life, this helps you handle transitions, be more open to change and learning, feel less stuck or foggy. 4. Transformation requires energy and aspartic acid helps provide it. Whether it's changing habits, starting a new chapter in life, healing old wounds, or building something new, you need mental clarity, motivation, and physical energy, all things that aspartic acid supports behind the scenes. So, is aspartic acid the source of transformation? Not exactly. Aspartic acid doesn't cause transformation, but it's one of the many key ingredients that powers your body's ability to adapt, supports your mind's capacity to change, helps you stay sharp, stable, and energized while growing, like a background support system for all your upgrades. For a real-life analogy, think of transformation like upgrading your software. Aspartic acid is one of the essential background programs making sure the processor runs, the energy flows, the files, thoughts, hormones, signals transfer smoothly so that you can download that new version of yourself. I think we got our decent conclusion about the connection we've searched. So, since we've located the gate on the mandala and on the body graph, and we have a general summary of the essential characteristics of gate 32, you also know the benefits of the amino acid associated with the behavior of this placement. You have the elements to keynote the message of this gate. If you have this gate active in your chart, take your time. Compose the key phrase of this gate and feel how it resonates. Leave a comment. Share your insights and understandings. Now let's have a look to the energy of gate 32. Duration, continuity from human design, in a practical and relatable way. This gate comes from the spleen center, which is all about intuition, survival, and body awareness. The only thing which endures is change. At first, this may sound paradoxical, but it's deeply wise. Let's look at it in pieces. 1. The name, gate 32, duration, continuity. Duration implies something that lasts over time. Continuity means ongoing, connected, flowing. But it's not about staying the same. It's about adapting and evolving in ways that preserve what works. This gate isn't stubbornly holding on to the past. It's assessing whether something, a relationship, idea, business, etc., is sustainable and worth investing in over the long run. 2. The source is the spleen center, and this means it's intuitive and body-based, not mental or logical. It gives you a gut feeling about whether something has long-term value. It operates in the now, offering a sense of yes, this can last, or nope, not safe or sustainable. 3. The channel 3254. Channel of transformation is a tribal or business channel about ambition and material success, but not at any cost. Gate 32 is the part that says, is this going to stand the test of time? Is this effort, partnership, or investment worth growing? Let's say you're offered a new job or partnership. Gate 32 doesn't think in spreadsheets. It feels whether this opportunity has long-term potential. If you're in touch with this gate, you might feel, this seems exciting now, but something's off. I don't think this will last. Or, this feels stable. I can see it evolving and being beneficial long-term. You're assessing risk and continuity intuitively. In real life, if you live a healthy expression, you sense trends or shifts before others. You know when to stick with something or let it go. You can be excellent in business, branding, or evolution of ideas. The low vibe of this gate is about fear of failure, which may cause you to cling to outdated things, or reject change too quickly if it feels unsafe. Take care of your growth with Gate 32 by trusting your body-based awareness about what is or isn't sustainable. Remember, change isn't the enemy, change is the only constant. Your gift is helping others and yourself evolve wisely by backing what endures and letting go of what won't. Let's hear what Rauruhu said in Line Companion about this gate. I quote, "The only thing which endures is change. The 32nd hexagram is part of the channel of transformation, a design of being driven. It is fueled by the energy of the 54th gate, the marrying maiden, the gate of ambition. The 32nd gate, like all gates in the splenic awareness, like all gates of awareness, is a gate of fear, and the fear of the 32nd gate is the fear of failure. Because it is the nature of the fear that is associated with this gate, every single line of the 32nd gate is dealing at some level or another with the fear of failure. The 32nd gate is duration, and it is the gate of continuity. It is a deeply conservative gate. It is the mirror of the emotional revolutionary and the 49 on the other side. It is conservative for the benefit of the tribe. It is trying to conserve the material success because it does not want to be a failure. Everything about the instinctive stream has to do with achieving material success for the tribe. The 32nd gate is deeply concerned about whether or not it will be a success and is very much afraid of failure. It is an instinctive stream which is deeply related to the nose. People with the 32nd gate can smell failure coming because they have an attribute which is the remembrance of failure, unlike the 54th gate that can only remember victory. That is why it is inherently conservative. It can recognize that transformation can always take place. The awareness here is to recognize what can be transformed, what should be transformed, or not. The ambition of the 54 does not always have to be satisfied. There is a time to move up the ladder. There is a time to change your product line. There is a time to go through these processes. The awareness in the 32 is trying to judge clearly what can and what cannot be transformed. The awareness potential. This is a liquid regulator. Our memory is in our water. The water in the cells carries our memory. This is all about a memory stream. Any activation in this stream is always going to be an indication of deep cellular memory in a human being. There is a memory for what did not work. By the way, the smell of failure builds up over a lifetime of seeing what does not work and getting a smell of what does not work so that you can pick up a whiff of that when it is coming. When you look in the Rave I Ching at the heading above the line for the 32nd hexagram, it says, "The only thing which endures is change." Don't misunderstand the nature of the 32nd gate. It is conservative, but radical conservatism leads to annihilation, leads to the end, leads to failure. For example, you have all these people who are still trying to produce teletype machines after the telefax came. It is time to recognize that you can only get to some point, and then you have to change it. If you don't change, you are going to be left by the wayside. Built into the nature of the 32nd gate is always a recognition that what truly endures is change, which is the evolutionary process. This is about being conservative in terms of what you will change to. This is the nature of the conservativeness here. It is not about rejecting change. This is very important to understand because it helps us to recognize that the tribe can be changed because at its most conservative gate, change is its nature. It is how one approaches that change. End of quote. I hope I've piqued your curiosity because we go on now to climb the 6 lines ladder of Gate 32. It's a process that will bring clarity to you in relation to nuances of the content and expression of the 32nd gate. At the end, we will touch upon the crosses of incarnation, where Gate 32 plays its role for our conscious sun and become part of the purpose. Let's see the 6 stages of development of this energy and possible dualism in its manifestation. Gate 32, Line 1, Conservation. Line keynote is respect for tradition, the valuing of tried and true patterns that ensure continuity. This is a very foundational, cautious, and preservation-oriented line. It's the base of the Gate 32 hexagram, which means it's the most rooted in instinct and survival, and it's all about preserving what works. Conceptually, it means that you have a deep intuitive sense of what has value over time, and you're inclined to conserve it. This could be traditions, proven strategies, relationships that work, business models that have stood the test of time. Rather than rushing into change, you're wired to assess if change honors the wisdom of the past. You ask, is this evolution based on solid ground, or are we throwing away something essential? Because this gate lives in the spleen center, you don't analyze this logically. You feel it in the moment, a yes or no that comes from deep instinct. You might feel drawn to stability or warned off by something that seems unsustainable. In work or projects, you're someone who might say, let's not reinvent the wheel. This way has worked for decades. I respect innovation, but only if it builds on solid foundations. You're invaluable in team dynamics because you protect what works. You're like the guardian of legacy. You know which values, systems, or methods shouldn't be thrown out just for novelty. In relationships, you may value loyalty and long-term connections, prefer relationships that evolve slowly and naturally, feel cautious about sudden, drastic changes in dynamics. You intuitively sense if a connection will last or not, and you tend to hold on to ones that feel deeply rooted. You may love family traditions or old recipes, rituals, or cultural practices. You likely have a nostalgic streak, not just for the past, but for what's meaningful and lasting. With this first line, you might become too cautious. You might resist needed change out of fear of loss, or clinging to outdated systems. There's a risk of staying too long in something that no longer serves. But remember, your gift is to distill what should be preserved, not to fear all change. The wisdom of line 1 in Gate 32 lies in this concept. Change is inevitable, but let's make sure we take what's good with us. You are the keeper of continuity through careful, intuitive conservation. You're not stuck in the past. You're ensuring that the right parts of the past endure. Sun exalted, a life sustaining respect and attention to all aspects of a process. The potential to develop the instinct through detailed attention to a process. This line is all about preserving what works, not by staying stuck in the past, but by respecting the wisdom of experience and paying close attention to how things evolve over time. With the sun exalted here, there's an enhanced clarity and vitality in how this energy expresses, a natural gift for noticing what is worth sustaining and how to preserve it. What does it mean practically? 1. You pay attention to the details that others overlook. You instinctively see where a process might break down, what needs to be maintained or reinforced, which small steps make or break long-term success. You're like a guardian of continuity, not through control, but through deep care and respect for the process. 2. You're wired to notice what will survive over time. Gate 32 is all about intuition for what will endure. In line 1, this means you don't rush. You take time to understand something before committing. You want to build on solid ground, not hype, not quick fixes. Think of it like tending a garden. You don't just throw seeds and hope. You observe the soil, the light, the water, and tend to each piece. That's what ensures something can live and last. The sun exalted here gives you a strong inner light, a clear, steady awareness of what's worth protecting, how to develop instinct through practice, the importance of integrity and devotion in any project or path. You likely value tradition, process, and wisdom passed down, but you apply it in your own way. With Sun exalted in line 1, in your work and projects, you're the person who builds systems that last. You naturally refine and improve things, not by changing everything, but by noticing what works and what doesn't. You may find joy in craft, design, ritual, structure, anything that honors detail and long-term value. People trust you because you don't skip steps. When you are involved in relationships, you show care through consistency and reliability. You tend to notice the little shifts in tone, mood, behavior, and respond with awareness. You likely don't rush into things emotionally. You're tuned in to whether something feels right over time. In your process of growth, on a personal level, you learn best by doing, observing, refining. You probably feel best when you're connected to meaningful routines or rituals that evolve with you. You can develop powerful intuition by paying attention to your own cycles and habits, journaling, tracking, reflecting. Be careful about the risk of not self, like, for example, over-controlling the process out of fear of failure, being too rigid or slow to adapt if something truly does need to change, feeling anxious if you can't see all the steps ahead. But when you're aligned, you're steady, wise, and intuitive, like a master craftsperson of life. The empowered expression of this line is about a very simple mantra. I honor the process, and I trust what reveals itself over time. You're here to bring lasting value into the world, not through speed, but through dedicated awareness. Mars in detriment, the uncontrollable urge to bypass essentials, which inevitably leads to the disruption of continuity, the fear of lack of potential, and the corresponding lack of attention. This energy is about the struggle to trust the process, especially when fear creeps in. You may want to sustain things, preserve value, or follow a smart path, but when Mars is in detriment, there's an impatient, impulsive tendency to skip the steps, especially when you're afraid that it's not going to work out anyway. 1. Mars energy is action, impulse, drive. When Mars is in detriment, that energy gets frustrated, unrefined, or misdirected. You might feel rushed to make something happen before it's ready, triggered by a sense that this isn't going anywhere, tempted to cut corners, ignore the process, or abandon something prematurely. Think, why bother tending the roots if the tree won't grow? 2. Part of the theme is about fear of failure, which blocks attention. Gate 32's fear is about failure or lack of potential, that what you're building won't survive or succeed. When this fear isn't recognized or calmed, it can lead to mental restlessness, constant second-guessing, jumping from one thing to another, a lack of presence with what actually matters. You might stop paying attention to what works or miss subtle signs of growth because your focus is locked on the fear of loss. 3. Another part of the theme is about bypassing essentials, disrupting the flow. This line warns, when you skip the foundations, research, planning, learning, listening, the system you're trying to build will likely break down later. Here are some examples in real life. Skipping emotional conversations in a relationship will lead to disconnection later. Launching a project too soon will attract collapse under pressure. Ignoring early signs of burnout brings the consequence of full crash later. It's not about being perfect. It's about respecting the process enough to move through each step with awareness. This line teaches you about patience and presence in transformation. It's not that you can't build something lasting. It's that you must learn to face the fear of failure without abandoning the process. This placement encourages you to cultivate slow attention to your process, honesty about when fear is running the show, trust that true value takes time to reveal itself, courage to stick with it even when it feels uncertain. You might need a simple mantra to avoid the not self. When I feel afraid that something won't succeed, I return to the essentials. I know that steady attention builds lasting value. It is helpful to listen to the words of Ra'uru Hu in relation to this first line. I quote, "In the first line, we start with introspection. We are starting with the foundation of the house. The first line will look inwards. It is the most conservative of all of these lines. It is called conservation, a life sustaining respect and attention to all aspects of a process. This is the ideal of the introspective field. In other words, yes, change is inevitable, but I will make sure that I have all the details before I get involved with that change and leave behind tradition." Mars in detriment, an uncontrollable urge to bypass essentials, which inevitably leads to the disruption of continuity. Because it is the tribe, and because it is inherently conservative, if you jump over the details, you will not be able to make the transition from what was old to what can be new. There will be something missing, and you will end up with all kinds of problems associated with this. The first line, because it is essential to the tribe, the detail is essential. What you have with the detriment are tribes that make jumps. For example, you can see that we find some Neolithic tribes in the middle of the Amazonian jungle. And what do we bring them? We bring them frying pans and mirrors. We bring them this whole leap, this whole transformation in their culture, and all the detail is missing in between. So many Aboriginal people have suffered because there has been this enormous gap between their culture and the one that is coming and imposing their way upon them without the detail being there. Those within the Aboriginal culture who made that jump, because they do not have the details, that inevitably leads to problems. They do not have continuity. They lose their culture. They jump into the other culture. They don't have the ability to bring the culture along and allow it to mature with new technology and new input. The first line is about introspection. When the introspection is missing, failure can happen. The failure will be there in the continuity. The fear is that once you see that the change is inevitable, this is the channel of being driven, there is this enormous urge to just change. Damn the details. I want that mirror. I don't care about the Madonna. One has to be careful with this. It is intended to be very conservative. It is the foundation of the tribe's success. The material success in the tribe is, okay, but let's keep our continuity. All the Aboriginal people that were integrated into other cultures now make their living by selling their Aboriginal art. They kept their culture, and it becomes a material success for them because their continuity is of value. They've brought the past into the future, and they can offer it and still provide for the nature of the tribe. When you are looking at the ego circuit, you are looking at the two streams that go to the ego. The emotional stream that goes to the ego, the stream of sensitivity, is all about communal life. The communal life is looking for the initiation, 2551. Here, you have a natural flow that takes place, and this is not about communal life, but life in the corporate culture. It is about the work structure. Who is working with whom and how we work together is organized in this stream. It begins in the 45th gate, which is the owner of the company. The 21st gate is the president. The 26th gate is the salesman or the head of sales. The 44th gate is the personnel manager, and the 32nd gate is the financial officer. The 32nd gate decides whether money is spent or not, and on what money is spent. They have a great deal of power because of that, and because below the financial manager are all these people in the 54 who try to climb up the corporate ladder, the marrying maidens who want to go all the way up to the top and be the CEO. The 54s are always trying to be familiar with the 32s. The 32s are always in a situation where the marrying maidens, with their ambition, are trying to get the financial officer to invest in things so that the transformation and the change can take place. End of quote. Gate 32, line 2, restraint. The line, keynote is, the control of power for the benefit and enhancement of harmony. This line is about having instinctive power or influence, but choosing not to push it. Instead, you hold back when needed to preserve balance in relationships. This line carries on the natural elegance. It's like quiet strength. The core essence is, just because you can doesn't mean you should. This line knows that timing is everything. You may feel deeply that something could be changed, improved, or challenged, but instead of forcing it, you let things unfold at the right pace. It's strategic patience, a kind of wise leadership that influences quietly. It is tied to the spleen center. So, remember, this is an intuitive, body-based awareness. You don't calculate your restraint. You feel it's not the right time to act, even if others rush ahead. The personality style is the natural. In line 2, in general, there's always this naturalness, a gift that works best when not interfered with. People with this line often don't realize how much influence they have, are naturally respected or looked to for insight or calm authority, aren't showy, they guide or influence in a quiet, grounded way. In work or projects, you might hold back from giving your opinion unless the timing feels right. Avoid pushing ideas too soon, letting them grow until the environment is ready. Influence outcomes without needing the spotlight. You're likely a steady presence people trust. In relationships, you may sense when it's better not to speak up just yet, even if something bothers you. You choose peace over unnecessary conflict without suppressing yourself. Others feel safe around you because you don't force change. But your restraint is not weakness. It's intelligent, intuitive timing. Personally, you probably feel that growth and success come over time, not through force. That it's important to wait for the right moment, whether in career moves, decisions, or even creativity. This gives you an air of quiet confidence. You know when to act and when not to. There is also a low expression to watch for, holding back too much, afraid to make waves, waiting so long that momentum passes and you miss opportunities, being misunderstood as passive or uninvolved. But when aligned, you're powerful in your calm, and your timing is usually spot on. For a strong second line of Gate 32, true power doesn't need to prove itself. It waits, listens, and moves when it counts. This is your wisdom. You carry a quiet authority, and your ability to sense when to hold back and when to act helps preserve harmony and long-term success. Venus exalted, the control of power for the benefit and enhancement of harmony, the potential for transformation that may be beneficial to others. This line is about having influence or instinctual power, but choosing to use it with grace and wisdom. With Venus exalted, your ability to preserve harmony while managing change is highly refined. This isn't brute force. It's elegant, subtle leadership, like a person who knows when to step in, how much to say, and what will create the most harmony and transformation for everyone involved. 1. The first theme is about a fact that you have instincts for social and emotional timing. Gate 32 is rooted in intuition for survival and potential. Line 2 adds natural restraint, the ability to hold back impulsive reactions and wait for the right moment. With Venus exalted, this shows up as knowing when to speak up and when to stay quiet, navigating change in a way that feels safe and grounded for others, using your influence for group well-being, not just personal gain. It's the quiet power of someone who knows their value but doesn't need to shout it. 2. The second part of the theme is that you're a harmonizer of change. People may come to you for advice or stability when they feel lost or unsure. You have a natural gift for calming fear in others, especially fear of failure or instability, the core fear of Gate 32. In real life, this could look like helping a team navigate a stressful change at work, supporting a friend through a breakup with gentle, wise words, guiding others through a transition by creating emotional safety and perspective. You help others see the potential in transformation, not just the loss. 3. The third part of the theme is about restraint, which equals power. This isn't passive energy. This is refined power. You may feel strong urges to push things forward, say what's on your mind, fix situations quickly, but your gift is in choosing when not to act, letting your presence, values, and inner knowing speak louder than words or force. Venus here says, true power is elegant. It enhances connection, not control. To take advantage of this energy in real life, let's see some steps. 1. Trust your sense of timing. Wait for the right moment before acting or speaking, especially during change. You'll feel it in your gut. Remember that gate 32 is part of the spleen, intuitive awareness. 2. Use your influence to create beauty and stability. Whether it's in conversation, design, planning, or emotional support, focus on what will preserve harmony and allow growth. 3. See yourself as a transformation guide. Even if you're not in a formal leadership role, you are someone who can midwife change, helping others move from one phase to another with more ease and trust. 4. Reflect before you react. If you feel rushed, pressured, or like you're losing control, pause. Restraint doesn't mean silence. It means conscious choice. Maybe it will be useful for you to remember this affirmation to activate this line. I trust the power of patience, timing, and graceful influence. I guide transformation by embodying harmony. Jupiter in detriment, a tendency in frustration, particularly from a position of strength, to social withdrawal rather than persistent control. The frustration with controls or being controlled. This needs to be analyzed, piece by piece, so you can understand how to recognize this pattern in your real life, and more importantly, how to work with it wisely to your advantage. At its core, this line describes a powerful survival instinct, gate 32, that gets triggered when you feel like you're not in control, your influence is ignored, or the situation is moving in a direction you don't trust. Because Jupiter is in detriment, instead of expanding and uplifting Jupiter's usual nature, its energy contracts under stress. So, instead of stepping into your potential, you may pull away, go quiet, withdraw emotionally or socially. What this might look like in daily life is a conclusion we can draw by analyzing piece by piece the line keynote, as we do for each line theme. 1. You care deeply about stability and long-term success. Gate 32 is wired to sense potential and also to feel fear when that potential seems threatened, especially fear of failure. You might feel, this won't work. People aren't listening to me. This situation is falling apart. So instead of influencing or guiding, you may just check out. At work, you see a project going the wrong way. Instead of speaking up repeatedly or stepping in, you might say nothing and retreat. Convince yourself it's not your problem. Become passive-aggressive or overly silent. 2. You get frustrated by external control or rigid systems. Jupiter is also about rules, order, expansion, and belief systems. In detriment, you might feel trapped in bureaucracy, annoyed by someone micromanaging you, resistant to following someone else's plan. This creates a tension. You want to contribute and guide, but you don't like being told what to do, and sometimes not being in charge makes you withdraw instead of collaborate. In a relationship, if your partner is pushing you to do things a certain way, you might shut down, pull away emotionally, avoid confrontation, but grow more resentful. So, how can you take advantage of this energy? We already know that this line gives you a choice between withdrawing in frustration or channeling that instinct into mature influence. Let's look at ways to work with it. 1. Recognize your frustration as a signal, not a stop sign. Frustration doesn't mean you're powerless. It means something matters to you. Use it as a trigger for clarity. What is it I'm trying to protect or preserve? What's the long-term potential I see that others might be missing? When you shift from reacting to responding, your wisdom comes through. 2. Transform withdrawal into strategic retreat. Instead of disappearing, try. Taking time to reflect before responding. Journaling your insights. Re-entering the situation with a calm but confident voice. You don't have to overpower, you just have to offer your insight with timing. Gate 32 is all about correct timing. 3. Choose where you do have influence. If you're feeling boxed in or controlled, focus on what you can shape or improve. Don't waste energy fighting systems that won't change. Instead, offer quiet leadership in places where your input is respected. Over time, this builds your role as someone who people trust to bring clarity in difficult transitions. This affirmation can align you with the energy of this placement. When I feel frustration or pressure, I pause to realign. My voice is valuable when I speak from calm clarity, not reaction. Or maybe it's useful to ask yourself, where do I withdraw when I feel unseen or powerless? How can I re-enter that space with steady, grounded influence instead of frustration? You may find better answers by listening to the words of Ra'uruhu from Line Companion. I quote, "In the Rave I Ching, it says, the control of power for the benefit and enhancement of harmony. I will not provide money for this person to be hired. They are always trying to be familiar. That is their job. Like the 19s on the other side, they are always flirting. You go up to the boss while he's having his dinner and say, 'Good evening, Mr. So-and-so,' and they book at you and say, 'Do I know you?' 'Yes, I work in the department.' The other side of this Jupiter in detriment. A tendency in frustration, particularly from a position of strength, to social withdrawal rather than persistent control. The projection here is that I have to control everything. People are control freaks. This leads directly to the 21. This is very tribal business. I have to control the resources to make sure that there is no failure. I'm either going to control it harmoniously or in a way that people are very uncomfortable with me. I say, you are fired. That is what the 32 can always say. I can look at the marrying maiden and say, yes, very nice. The same one that comes up to the boss and says, good morning, Mr. So-and-so. If the boss looks at you and says, who are you? Then you will not make your way up the ladder. Restraint is what the note is here. The potential for transformation that may be beneficial to others. But the second line is in control of this, projecting it out. We know that second lines can lead to problems due to their projection. The 32.2 can get into trouble projecting into the marrying maiden and saying, yes, this is a wonderful idea. This is what we will do. This is what will be the change. They are just projecting it out. They project their power. I have got the pocketbook. I am projecting my power. This creates problems and disharmony. The frustration with controls or being controlled. The frustration of having to control people all the time. Once you project power outwards, then you are stuck having to live with it. For analysts, all second lines are difficult to read because basically, we do not want to tell people things that we think moralistically are uncomfortable. You don't want to tell somebody about their 58.2 that they have the line of perversion. Everybody gets very nervous. When you are looking at the second line, the thing to recognize is that it is a part of your nature that will get into trouble, and you are supposed to. After all, it is a learning process. A second line is not by its very nature a problem, and at the same time, design is a duality. The restraint can be there. Those who project learn to recognize projection. This is part of the process. There is a maturity that can take place in this process, but there is a great deal of frustration that is rooted in this. Projecting out power means that you have to back it up, and if you can't back it up, you get into trouble. That is where the fear of failure comes in. Can I project my control and maintain it without creating disharmony or problems? That would be a failure. No tribal organization, no corporation can function unless there is some level of harmony within the corporate culture. Otherwise, it does not work. This is one of the things we had when we were living in a second line phase that existed around the birth of Hitler, 1888 until 1961, when we were in the previous global cycle. We have been in the first line since 1961. Since 1888, we have witnessed the wars that took place. The Russian-Japanese War, the First and Second World Wars, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, all during a time of projection, the projecting of power. All second lines are trying to project out power, and they can't necessarily back it up. We've lived through an era of projection of power, and we saw how devastating that could be to the planet. We also saw that, out of that, we have our modern age. There is no good or bad in the movie. There is just the movie. End of quote. Gate 32, line 3, lack of continuity. The tendency to withdraw support prematurely, which can lead to instability. This is where the energy of instinctive survival, Gate 32, meets line 3's trial and error nature. It's a line that learns through experience, especially through what doesn't last. This line is about learning what is sustainable and what isn't by testing it in real life. But here's the twist. Sometimes the instinct to pull out too soon can lead to missed growth, missed partnerships, or disruptions. So that this line walks a fine edge between letting go too fast, out of fear of failure or instability, and learning to stay long enough to see real value emerge. Rooted in the spleen center, survival plus intuition, your body may signal danger or not sustainable before your mind knows why. But sometimes that signal is based on fear, not actual risk. So you might bail out of something that could have worked, a gig, a relationship, a project, because it didn't feel right yet. In work, projects, or business, you might start something with enthusiasm, but then sense it's not working and pull out too early. Leave a job or collaboration right before it starts paying off because the early stage felt rocky. Have a pattern of changing directions often, trying to find the one that sticks. But here's the thing. This gives you huge wisdom about what doesn't work, and that eventually leads you to what does. In relationships, you may feel very sensitive to when something is off and want to end things quickly. Struggle with trusting the unfolding of connection. Learn through trial and error who's truly worth building with and who's not. This teaches you not to rush into or out of commitment, but to ride the wave long enough to know. In your personal growth process, you may have a restless spirit, always refining, always adapting. That's a gift. But your lesson is about discernment. When is it time to leave because something truly can't grow? And when are you just afraid it won't? Take care of inherent challenges of this gate when you are bot aligned, such as premature quitting, walking away too soon, and creating unnecessary instability. Fear-based decision-making, interpreting discomfort as a sign to run when it's actually just part of growth. Remember that. It takes time to know what endures. Stick with it just long enough to see the truth. This is your wisdom. You're here to experiment, to learn what sticks through your own lived experiences, and in the process, you become a master of real-world sustainability. Mercury exalted, indecision and persistent reevaluation that only because of its basic intelligence manages to endure, indecision in times of transformation. This line describes a mental loop where in the face of change or uncertainty, you rethink, reanalyze, and hesitate. But thanks to Mercury being exalted, this mental activity is actually intelligent. It may look like indecision, but it comes from a deep desire to get things right and ensure lasting value. So yes, you might doubt or delay, but your mind is processing the deeper truth before committing to the next move. 1. First part of the theme. Indecision isn't a weakness, it's part of your wisdom. Gate 32's job is to sense potential for survival and success. Line 3 is experimental. It wants to try, test, fail, and learn. With Mercury exalted, you may get stuck in your thoughts during times of change. Is this the right step? Will this last? What if I'm missing something? Should I wait longer? Instead of taking action, you might keep reevaluating, sometimes to the point of mental fatigue. 2. Second part of the theme, but you're not failing, you're refining. This kind of indecision is actually a mental processing stage. It's like the architect who revisits the blueprint 10 times before building, the friend who sits in silence during big life changes, but then says just the right thing, the strategist who seems quiet but is always thinking 5 moves ahead. This isn't about being indecisive forever. It's about taking your time to make wise, lasting choices. 3. The challenge, in this line keynote, is about getting lost in the loop. Too much indecision can create delays, missed opportunities, frustration with yourself and others. You may feel like you can't trust your gut, you don't know when to act, you doubt yourself even when things are going fine. That's where Mercury's intelligence becomes your ally. If you can name what you're reevaluating, you can break the loop. To take advantage of this energy in a real life, follow a few steps, such as 1. Give yourself space to think, but with a time limit. If you feel stuck between 2 options, try this. Write down your 2 or 3 choices. Ask yourself, what's the potential in each for long term? Set a time boundary. I'll reflect until Friday, then I decide. This honors your Gate 32 intelligence, but avoids the trap of endless waiting. 2. Turn reevaluation into conversation. Because Mercury rules communication, talking it out helps you move forward. Try sharing your process with a trusted friend or asking someone to reflect back what they hear. Speak out loud your fears and insights. Sometimes your truth emerges when you verbalize it. 3. Look at your indecision as a form of care. You pause because you want to protect something. The relationship, the business, your health, or your time. That's not weakness. It's instinctual wisdom. But don't confuse reevaluation with avoidance. Ask yourself, am I thinking this through or am I avoiding a necessary step? 4. Embrace the awkward middle. Line 3 is always in process. It doesn't feel polished, but it's learning through the mess. You may be the one who helps others pause, rethink, and find smarter solutions before rushing ahead. In teams, relationships, or creative projects, your ability to hesitate and refine helps everyone build something more lasting. Here is an affirmation to avoid the not self. I give myself permission to pause and think deeply, but I trust that clarity will come when I move with awareness. To stay aligned, to embrace the high expression of this exaltation as a personal process for your growth, ask yourself, what am I currently reevaluating? What is the deeper wisdom behind my hesitation? If I fully trusted myself, what small step would I take next? Jupiter in detriment, an over-reliance on traditionally legitimized standards that in times of change can be totally out of step and suffer unexpected humiliation. A lack of instinct in times of transformation, trying to stay safe by sticking to the way it's always been done and finding that it doesn't work anymore. This line speaks of someone who leans too heavily on the old rules, the traditional systems, or what's been proven or approved in the past. But Gate 32 is all about sensing transformation and survival in changing conditions. So when you rely too much on yesterday's blueprint to deal with today's shift, you risk falling behind, being blindsided, or worse, being publicly wrong or exposed. This is the humiliation part. Jupiter in detriment here means you might believe too much in the system, even when it's clearly outdated. You might trust experts or traditions over your own gut instinct. You may fear change so much that you cling to stability, even as it crumbles. In real life, for example, You keep using the old way of doing things at your job because that's how we've always done it. Even though clients are evolving, technology is changing, team members are frustrated. Eventually, your strategy fails, and it's embarrassing, not because you're incompetent, but because you were out of sync with the present moment. Another example in relationships. You follow traditional gender roles, relationship expectations, or advice from parents. Even though it doesn't feel right, your partner wants something different. Times have changed. You end up creating distance or conflict because you're applying outdated models to a present-day dynamic. The opportunity is that this line is like a big wake-up call to stop relying on external authority and to start developing your own instinct, your internal compass, especially when life is shifting. Gate 32 is part of the spleen center, which is about survival through instinct. So in this line, the absence of instinct causes the crash, but the solution is building that instinct over time. The words of Ra-Uruhu may provide you a deeper understanding about the energy of this line. I quote, "This is simply stepping out there for the first time, trying to go across that channel and trying to make contact with the 54 on the other side, and the recognition that the 54 is really there. What the 54 is will condition the nature of what the 32 is. This recognition of adaptation that has to take place within the channel. It is called lack of continuity. This is exactly opposite to the nature of this hexagram, which is about continuity. One can be very irresponsible in terms of the nature of how one is conservative. Mercury exalted, indecision and persistent reevaluation that only because of its basic intelligence manages to endure. The thing to recognize here is that this position of the 32nd gate is inherently intelligent. If you look at signs of intelligence in somebody's chart, there are many, by the way. The 32nd hexagram is one of them. It is a sign of intelligence. The Jupiterian side is an over-reliance on traditionally legitimized standards that in times of change can be totally out of step and suffer unexpected humiliation. This is the whole thing about third lines anyway. You make a bond, and then the bond gets broken, and there's going to be all kinds of stuff that gets left as the debris of that. This is all about the fear of failure, indecision in times of transformation. What do I do, and who do I do it with? Do I do it with you? If I do it with you, I cannot do it my way. I have to do it our way. The other side of this, a lack of instinct in times of transformation, not being able to get it at the right time, not being able to adapt at the right time. The 3 is the kind of person that says to you, yes, maybe that will work. I'll think about it. Then they meet you again and they tell you, yes, I really think that I will do it. Let's set up a contract. They do not really know. It is indecision. Everything gets prolonged. They are not really certain what to do with all of that. The whole thing then can fall apart. All of a sudden, you call them up for the day of the signing, and they are not there anymore because they have broken that bond entirely and it's gone. Gate 32, line 4, right is might. The intuitive awareness to avoid conflict and know when, where, and with whom struggles are worthwhile. This line is all about power, influence, and survival, but with a twist. It's not about brute force or fighting just to win. It's about using your awareness and discernment to know when it's right to act and when it's wiser to walk away. This line brings a tribal survival wisdom. Don't waste energy fighting battles that won't serve the greater good or long-term stability. You're not here to prove yourself through domination. You're here to protect continuity and harmony by picking your battles wisely. Your power is splenic, meaning it's intuitive and quiet, not aggressive. You don't need to raise your voice or make a scene. Instead, you can feel in your body when something's right and it's worth defending or investing in, or when pushing would cause harm, instability, or loss, and it's better to wait or walk. In work, leadership, or projects, You know when to speak up in a meeting and when staying silent says more. You understand politics or team dynamics intuitively, avoiding drama, but standing firm when values or direction are at stake. You're the person who stabilizes the tribe, team, family, project by knowing how to move things forward without force. Think, I don't have to push, I just have to move at the right time for the right reason. In relationships, you don't want to argue just to be right, but if something really matters, you'll stand up for it. You sense when to let things go and when it's important to hold your ground to protect long-term stability. You influence others through quiet strength, not control. In personal life, you may value integrity, fairness, and timing deeply. Your power grows when you align with what's right, not just what's popular or easy. You're learning that doing the right thing brings real strength, even if it's not loud or flashy. When you are not aligned, you might hold back your power out of fear of rocking the boat, missing moments when you should act, or swing to the other side, pushing too hard out of fear of being ignored, which creates instability. But when you're in balance, you're someone others trust to lead with wisdom and fairness. You understand that real strength isn't in fighting everything, it's in knowing when and why to fight. You're here to preserve long-term harmony, not win short-term battles. If I choose a mantra for you, here is a simple one. Power is not in pushing, but in choosing what's worth pushing for. Jupiter exalted. Even in times of change, certain underlying principles endure. The instinct to maintain one's principles in times of change. This line says, you thrive when you hold steady to your core values even when everything around you is changing. When the world shifts, your truth doesn't have to. Gate 32 is about the instinct for what will last. This is a spleen gate, deeply connected to survival, intuition, and natural timing. Gate 32 senses what is viable, what's worth investing in for the long haul. It tracks whether something has the potential to endure. Line 4 is the line of foundation and influence through consistency. And when Jupiter is exalted here, it adds expansion, benevolence, and a strong moral compass. So in you, this might look like a deep, instinctive knowing of what matters most, a refusal to abandon your core values just to fit in or succeed, a calm strength that others respect and follow, especially in times of chaos. From the perspective of your personal integrity, here is an example of how this plays out in real life. You're in a situation where people are cutting corners, chasing quick wins, or compromising themselves to adapt. Instead of following the crowd, you stay rooted in what you believe is right, even if it's slower. Over time, your path proves to be more sustainable and respected. In business or career, you might be the leader who stays ethical in an industry that rewards shady behavior, the entrepreneur who chooses quality and long-term service over trendy shortcuts, the teammate who protects process and principles even when a manager wants speed. And because Jupiter is exalted, this principled stance often leads to long-term trust, growth, and recognition. In relationships, this might look like holding strong boundaries without being rigid, not abandoning your needs or values just to please others, navigating change with clarity and emotional consistency. It builds trust. People know where you stand, and that's grounding. The benefit of this energy is that you become a stabilizing force in times of uncertainty. Others might be scattered, reactionary, easily swayed, but you remain anchored in your truth, and that gives you influence, respect, and impact, not through domination, but through alignment. This is the healthy version of right is might. Your rightness, integrity, becomes your might, power. Saturn in detriment. Where Jupiter will establish right action in the larger social realm, Saturn's will lead to inner strength and endurance as long as it is not threatened from the outside. The instinct to maintain one's principles as long as one's security is not threatened. Saturn in detriment is not about weakness. It's about internal strength, resilience, and the resolve to stay true to your principles. However, this line brings up the tension between staying true to what you believe versus the fear or challenge of external threats to your safety, security, or comfort. In practical terms, this line is about your principles and your security. With Saturn in detriment, there's a strong internal drive to maintain what you believe is right, but only as long as there is no external threat to your personal safety, comfort, or position. Think of it like this. You stand firm in your values when things are stable and secure. But when your comfort zone is challenged, whether it's financial security, personal safety, or social standing, you may falter and struggle to maintain those values. It's like a test of integrity that happens under stress. In work or career, you stand by your principles. Maybe you're the type who values honesty, fairness, or doing the right thing in your job. When everything is running smoothly, you're steady and committed. But when the company starts cutting corners or pushing for unethical practices to increase profits, you feel that pressure. You might compromise on your beliefs or take less action because your job and security are at risk. Your resolve is strong, but the threat to your security, losing your job, financial instability, can cause internal conflict. To a personal level, in relationships, you value honesty and authenticity in your relationships. When everything is calm, you hold true to your values. However, if your relationship faces external challenges, e.g., someone questioning your character, social pressure, or financial issues, you might struggle to maintain your values or even withdraw your truth to avoid rocking the boat. Your internal strength to maintain principles is strong, but when threatened by external circumstances, you may feel defensive or anxious about staying true to them. In your personal life, you likely hold strong principles about self-respect, boundaries, or personal growth. You know what's right for you, and you don't easily bend in your values. But if you feel isolated or out of place in your environment, social, financial, or physical insecurity, you might question those values or hold back from fully living them because the external threats, like rejection, failure, or instability, make you want to protect yourself first. The core opportunity is learning to stay true to your values, even when things feel uncertain or threatening. With Saturn in detriment, you might find it challenging to stand firm in your principles when there's an external pressure, be it from society, peers, or life circumstances. But the growth comes when you learn to anchor your values internally, not relying on external validation or safety nets. In order to integrate the energy of this placement, you might find useful to practice boundaries. When you feel external pressure, practice setting healthy boundaries that protect your core values. It's okay to say no or to walk away from situations that threaten your integrity. Or it may be useful to look for support. Find people who respect your principles and who you can lean on when your security feels threatened. Having that support system can help you maintain your integrity without feeling isolated. Saturn, in detriment here, could respond positively to this simple mantra. Even in challenging times, I trust my principles to guide me. I stand strong in my values, and I will protect them, no matter the external circumstances. On the other side, for a constant dialogue with Saturn during your personal growth, ask yourself, what are the values I will never compromise, even if my external world feels unstable? When have I been tested in the past, and how did I respond? How can I strengthen my inner resolve in the face of external pressure? Maybe you find answers in the words of Ra Uru Hu. Extract from line companion. I quote, "Whenever you come to the fourth line, remember the resonance between first and fourth line. You are coming to the upper trigram, and you come to a change in the nature of the frequency. The fourth line is about externalization, the one track. You take one aspect and run along with it. We also know that fourth lines are here to corrupt or being corrupted. Here we have right is might. Think about that because that is the one crack. Everything is about the power. If you have the power, you are right. Even in times of change, certain underlying principles endure. Whoever controls the purse, controls the purse. Where Jupiter will establish right action, in the larger social realm, Saturn will lead to inner strength and endurance as long as it is not threatened from the outside, the instinct to maintain one's principles in times of change, or the instinct to maintain one's principles as long as one's security is not threatened. Either you have the power to maintain it, no matter what, right is might, and you corrupt others with that. I have the power, and you do what I say whether you think that that is right or not. Or the other side is, I can only have the power if you do what I tell you to do. I will make sure that I will not have people that are working for me who do not listen to my orders, whether they like them or not. This is just a one track. It is neither good nor bad. It can be very successful when the principles are correct. If the values are not correct, they still have that one-track mind. Gate 32, line 5, flexibility, easy adaptation to circumstances. This line is all about the ability to flow with change, pivot when needed, and adjust to new situations without losing your core values or long-term vision. In the line keynote, there is a big idea. The key to survival is not rigidity, it's adaptability. This line knows that the world changes constantly. Instead of resisting, you learn to shift, adjust, and evolve, all while staying tuned to what's truly sustainable and meaningful. Think of yourself like a bamboo tree, flexible enough to bend in the storm, but rooted deeply enough not to break. Because this is in the spleen, your flexibility is not planned. It's intuitive. You just know when it's time to pivot, to change your approach, or to let go of what's not working anymore. It's a gut-level knowing of, this path is no longer aligned. Let's try a different way, but keep moving forward. In work or business, you're the person who can pivot quickly when plans change. You can adapt your strategies to suit new market conditions or team dynamics. If a project hits a wall, you don't panic. You find another route forward. This makes you valuable in leadership or entrepreneurial roles. You don't need everything to stay the same to succeed. In relationships, you're not rigid about how love has to look. You can adapt to different personalities or changing relationship dynamics. You have the potential to stay committed even as things evolve, as long as it feels right in your body. You're the kind of person who can grow with someone instead of getting stuck in how it used to be. On a personal level, you probably reinvent yourself naturally over time. Your work, your style, your goals. You sense when it's time to let go of something, an idea, a habit, a plan, and you can shift without drama. You trust that changing your approach doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're wise. The low expression of this line is about too much adaptability can lead to people-pleasing or losing your direction. You might shift too quickly or change plans often, making it hard to follow through. But when you're grounded, your flexibility becomes a powerful tool for long-term success. When aligned, you know what it means to change without losing integrity. You know that evolution is survival, and you help others see that too. You're tuned into what's working, and you're not afraid to tweak, shift, or change course if it helps create lasting success. A simple real-life mantra for you is, I adapt, I evolve, and I stay true to what matters. Moon exalted. The moon exalted, where superficiality is a valuable tool that while masking the inner light permits adaptation to prevailing conditions. An instinct for adaptation in times of change. This line suggests that superficiality, or presenting a certain outward appearance, can actually be useful, not in a deceptive way, but as a tool for adaptation. The moon exalted here represents emotional intelligence, the ability to adapt, and the fluid nature of emotions that can guide you through change. In practical terms, this means that what you project outwardly, your surface behavior or demeanor, can help you adjust to external changes, smooth the way for you, and create a sense of harmony while protecting your deeper inner light from the chaos around you. This energy is about adaptation. You don't have to force things to be deep and serious all the time. Sometimes, just knowing how to navigate the surface is enough. In practical terms, here we have superficiality as a tool, and this doesn't mean you're being fake or inauthentic. Instead, it's about being strategic with how you show up in situations that require adaptability, especially during times of change or uncertainty. When the environment changes rapidly, whether in your personal life, work, or a social setting, you might find that embracing flexibility, even at the surface level, helps you fit in and adjust without needing to disrupt your core values or deeper self. For example, in times of external uncertainty, instead of stubbornly holding on to your usual way of doing things, you may find peace by adapting to how things are shifting without losing your integrity. Protect your inner self and keep your inner world intact while you adapt outwardly. Think of it like putting on a mask in a challenging social environment to blend in, while your inner authenticity stays shielded until the environment feels safe. You have an instinct for how to read the room and respond appropriately. You understand that not every situation requires you to reveal your true feelings or inner thoughts. Sometimes, it's more effective to go with the flow on the outside, especially when emotions are running high or when you're navigating an unknown or uncertain situation. Here is an example of this placement's influence. Your workplace is going through a major shift. New leadership is coming in, and everyone's feeling nervous. Instead of fighting against the changes, you adapt your outward behavior. Maybe you're more cooperative, align with the new direction, and smooth things over with colleagues. You don't have to immediately show your deeper feelings or resist the changes. Your ability to blend in and be flexible at the surface level can help you fit in, keep things calm, and allow you to protect your personal beliefs until the time is right to express them. In social relationships, think about the situation when you're at a social event where the conversation or mood is tense or uncomfortable. Instead of sticking to your usual way of expressing your opinions, you adjust to the group dynamic by being more lighthearted, agreeable, or simply listening. This outward adaptation doesn't mean you're being fake. It means you're using emotional intelligence to create harmony and make the situation easier for everyone involved. You can still maintain your deeper, true self internally, but you recognize that sometimes the surface layer, your outward behavior, needs to shift for the moment. During your personal process of growth, let's say that you're going through a significant life change, like moving to a new city, changing careers, or navigating a breakup. The outside world feels unfamiliar, and you don't yet have your bearings. Instead of forcing yourself to act like everything is fine or to stick rigidly to your old ways, you soften your exterior. You allow yourself to adapt to the new circumstances, maybe by adjusting your behavior, appearance, or routines. While this outward shift helps you blend in and cope with the change, your core self, your deeper values and beliefs, remain untouched, and you give yourself time to adjust on your own terms. The opportunity with this energy is flexibility in adapting to changing circumstances. Recognizing that superficiality can be useful as a temporary strategy for adaptation, so long as you're clear that it doesn't mean abandoning your inner truth. The challenge is not to become too attached to surface-level changes or lose touch with your deeper self. It's important to balance adaptation with authenticity, ensuring you don't get lost in pleasing others or compromising your values. Mars and detriment. The urge to express oneself in direct and often violent rejection of conformity. The potential of the instinct to reject adaptation and conformity in times of change. This energy points to a powerful resistance to conformity and adaptation, particularly in times of change. With Mars in detriment, there's an impulse to act out or rebel against the norms, rules, or systems that are changing or are seen as restrictive. You may feel an urgent need to assert your individuality and resist adapting to external shifts. While this can manifest as strong willpower or courage to stand your ground, there is also the potential for this energy to go too far, leading to excessive aggression, violence, or stubbornness when it comes to rejecting anything that feels like conformity. In practical terms, this means you have a deep instinct to reject societal norms, rules, or structures that seem limiting or unnatural to you. You may find yourself rebelling against the status quo, particularly in situations where you feel like you don't fit in or where change is being imposed on you. This energy also suggests that, during times of change, you might feel an inner resistance to adapt. Rather than adapting to new circumstances, you may feel an overwhelming urge to push back or revolt against the change itself. It's like when you're in a situation where everything is shifting and the natural response is to fight or reject the changes, often due to a fear of losing your identity or being forced to conform to something that feels inauthentic. There might be also a tendency to go against the grain. With Mars in detriment, you may have a compulsive urge to push back hard against authority figures or systems that feel oppressive or limiting. This can be productive when it's focused on positive change or breaking free from restrictive norms, but if not handled consciously, it can lead to unnecessary conflict or self-sabotage. Here are some real-life scenarios where this energy might show up. In workplace or career, let's say you're in a corporate or organizational setting where change is happening. The company is shifting its direction, changing policies, or adopting new systems. Instead of adapting or trying to flow with the change, you feel strongly compelled to fight against it. You might want to reject the new structure entirely, push back against authority, or feel frustrated that you're being forced to conform to something you don't agree with. Your urge to resist the changes could be strong, and you may feel that the best way to deal with it is through direct confrontation or by asserting yourself forcefully. But this could cause tension, resistance, and potential conflict with those around you. In relationships, romantic, family, or friendships, you might feel frustrated with the expectations or norms others try to impose on you. Whether it's societal expectations or personal pressures, the desire to reject these external influences might arise. You may feel an urge to resist compromising or adapting to others' needs, often in a way that comes off as stubborn or aggressive. For example, if someone in your family or circle of friends is trying to push you into a certain role or mold, you might reject that role in a very defiant way, even if the adaptation could help the relationship or situation. The instinct to remain individual and unconventional can clash with your emotional needs for connection. In a social or political environment where there's a shift in norms or practices, you might find yourself resisting the changes due to a deep-seated belief that the new ways are wrong or oppressive. You may want to express your opposition loudly and assertively, rejecting the new norms or standards being pushed forward. This energy may lead you to take a stand or engage in protests, but if not handled carefully, it can also result in excessive rebellion or anger that does not contribute to constructive change. The opportunity here is about courage to stand up for what you believe. The rebellious energy can empower you to stand firm in your values and principles, especially when those around you are trying to push you into the conformity. Fighting for positive change. This energy can be harnessed to push back against unjust systems or oppressive structures, helping you lead change and transformation in your life or in society. In real life, you also might face some challenges when not aligned, such as tendency to go too far. The danger here is that the impulse to reject change and resist conformity can become too aggressive or destructive. This could lead to unnecessary conflicts, stubbornness, or even self-sabotage. Lack of adaptation. By resisting change, you may miss out on opportunities for growth, and miss the chance to adapt in a healthy, productive way. Rigid resistance could prevent you from benefiting from the changes taking place. You might understand opportunities and challenges from a different perspective after listening the words of Ra Uru Hu from Line Companion. I quote, "The fifth line is the fulfillment of the essence of what the hexagram is. It is the capacity to universalize, to be able to bring it out, not only to the gate that is at the other end of the channel, but to begin the process of moving into the circuitry. This is something that has a broader movement. Due to its collective keynote, it is an aspect that can bring the tribe to collective change. This is something that we deal with in the tension of the world today. For example, the United Nations, as a collective organization, wants the Bosnians, the Serbs, and the Croats, who are tribal, to make peace with each other. If you want to look at the fulfillment of this hexagram, it is about the flexible projection of power. Fifth lines resonate to second lines. It is no longer the pure projection of the second line. This is the next step up in this structure. This projection here is all about recognizing that one has to be flexible in the way one projects outwards. Flexibility. Easy adaptation to circumstances. Moon exalted. Superficiality is a valuable tool that, while masking the inner light, permits adaptation to prevailing conditions. This is all about keeping it underneath. You know that you have the power to project, but circumstances are not allowing you to project your power at this moment. So you bide your time, you wait and see. You wait for your opportunity, and then you project it out. Mars on the other side. The urge to express oneself in direct and often violent rejection of conformity. Conformity is the nature of the tribe, which is deeply conservative. The violence in this is mirrored on the other side in the 49-5. It is mirrored in the possibility of being able to fulfill revolution so that revolution becomes a universalized process. In that, there is always the possibility here for vast change in the nature of the tribe. Suddenly, the tribe can be brought to a point of becoming one with the collective, in that sense. An instinct for adaptation in times of change. To know when to project your power and when not to. Remember, underneath that is the fear of failure. I'd better not project my power out because, if I do so, I destabilize everything, so I'd better hold that all back inside of me and wait and see what happens. The potential of the instinct to reject adaptation and conformity in times of change. The keynote, in times of change. That is the only time this is going to come into play. These are the kind of people that you want holding the purse strings when there is a vast change in the society around you. They are the ones who should be in power in those moments. What happens is that they are the ones that naturally have the greatest impact in times of change. One of the classic examples that you know about is in corporations and what they call downsizing. This is the detriment. This is very common. We are not going to look after all the people in the company anymore who have been loyal to us for 25 years, who have been our family and allowed us to become wealthy. We will fire all of them because our shareholders need profits. We are in times of change because we have a globalizing economy, and I am sorry you have to be the victim. We really wanted to do this 5 years ago, but now we can do it. It depends on where you are in that. If you are victim, this is a terrible thing. It appears to be deeply violent in that sense. If you are not the victim, it can just mean being flexible. The person who is making that decision says, "Look, if I do not fire these 5,000 workers, the Indonesians will steal my market, and all my other 25,000 workers will lose their jobs, and my shareholders will go mad." That is the other side of the story. These things are not one-dimensional. That is the universalizing element. Whenever you see fifth lines in a chart, whenever you see transits that are affecting fifth lines, you know that there is a special kind of element at work that is trying to get things projected outward in a much larger field. This is a universalizing process. End of quote. Gate 32, line 6, tranquility. The line keynote is the need to calmly face impermanence. This line speaks to mature wisdom, the deep inner knowing that everything changes, and instead of resisting it, you remain steady and at peace through the shifts. This is the culmination of Gate 32's journey, from sensing what will last to accepting what won't, with calm and grace. The core message is that nothing lasts forever, and that's okay. People with this line have the potential to carry a calm, almost Zen-like awareness of how life, success, relationships, and even identity evolve and fade, and you don't panic in the face of that. You understand something many struggle with. Change and impermanence are not threats, they're natural. Rooted in the spleen center, survival plus instinct, this calmness isn't intellectual, it's instinctive. Your body just knows. When something is past its time, when it's okay to let go, when holding on would only create suffering, and from that knowing, you bring a deep serenity. In your project, in work or career, you might calmly end a business or a project when you sense its natural life cycle has passed without drama. You don't cling to outdated models. You let go when the time is right, trusting something new will come. You could be a steady guide for others who panic during transitions because you don't. You embody that leader who says, "This chapter is done. Let's move forward." In your relationships, you might be able to stay grounded when things shift. A breakup, a big change, or even watching someone grow apart. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you honor each phase of a relationship and understand when it's time to evolve or release. People may come to you when they're afraid of change because your energy says, "You'll be okay." On a personal level, you likely don't fear endings the way others do. You may feel a natural draw toward acceptance, peace, or surrender in the face of change. You can feel a sense of purpose in preserving what lasts, but also peace when it doesn't. This makes you a kind of emotional anchor for yourself and others. When not aligned, there is a low expression of this line, and it could be about resignation or detachment, accepting endings too easily without engaging fully while things are alive. Avoidance, using tranquility as a shield to not feel the full depth of grief or transition. The high expression isn't about being cold or aloof. It's about inner peace in the face of life's natural waves. The full vibe of this line will empower your high expression of this line, such as, you are the person who can say, "Yes, this is ending, and that's part of life. Let's honor it and move forward." You understand that trying to control or cling to permanence creates suffering, so you don't. You become a source of calm guidance during transition, helping others move through change with grace. In a few words, your life mantra sounds like this: I am steady in the storm. I know all things change, and I trust the cycle. Pluto exalted, an underlying acceptance of change that may or may not lead to tranquility. The instinctive awareness to accept change and transformation. This energy represents a deep instinctive awareness that change and transformation are inevitable. The presence of Pluto exalted here adds an element of profound internal strength and awareness of transformation on a deep, sometimes even subconscious level. Pluto, as a transformative planet, brings a sense of embracing the inevitable. There's an instinct to accept change, even when it is difficult, and a deeper understanding that transformation is part of the cycle of life. However, despite the awareness and acceptance, this energy doesn't guarantee tranquility or smooth sailing. The process of transformation can still be intense, and while there is acceptance of change, there might still be moments of tension or chaos that come with it. This line gives you the ability to flow with change, but with the recognition that the journey can still be difficult and unpredictable. In practical terms, this line indicates that you instinctively accept that change is a natural part of life. You don't try to fight against it, even when it might be uncomfortable. You recognize that transformation, though challenging, is often necessary for growth, both for yourself and others. With Pluto exalted, this energy gives you a deep understanding that transformation is not only inevitable, but often necessary for progress. This isn't a surface-level acceptance of change. It's a deep, subconscious understanding of the need for evolution. You may find that you naturally have a way of accepting change, even in the most difficult times, without feeling as overwhelmed as others might. There's a calm awareness that the world will shift, and you are naturally in tune with this process. Transformation is a constant theme of your life. With Pluto's influence, there's a sense of inevitability around transformation, and you may find that you are often in situations where change is occurring around you, whether in your career, relationships, or personal life. You might go through many cycles of transformation that teach you important lessons about yourself and the world. In relationships, you might encounter situations where change is required. Perhaps a partner wants to move in a different direction, or a close friend goes through a personal transformation. Instead of resisting or trying to hold on to the past, you instinctively accept that change is part of life. You recognize that this transformation may benefit both of you in the long run. Your ability to accept the process of transformation might help you avoid unnecessary conflict or distress, allowing you to grow alongside those close to you. Even if the process is uncomfortable, you have the inner strength to flow with it. In your personal process of life, let's say you're going through a significant period of personal transformation. Perhaps you're changing your lifestyle, letting go of old habits, or confronting deep-seated emotional patterns. In this example, with Pluto imprint in this line, instead of resisting this inner work, you feel a deeper sense of acceptance for the process. You know that it might not always be peaceful or smooth, but you accept that transformation is part of the journey. This energy may allow you to embrace discomfort and the emotional turmoil that often accompanies change. While others might try to escape the intensity of transformation, you have a sense of resilience that helps you face the challenges head-on. The great opportunity of this placement lies in the abilities, inner strength, and adaptation as basic lines of personal growth. So, this energy gives you the ability to understand and accept transformation. You can use this to lead change in your own life or in your community, recognizing that growth often requires a certain level of discomfort. Pluto's influence gives you inner strength to navigate transformation, even when it's not easy. You may be able to endure and thrive in challenging situations. The more you embrace and accept change, the more you empower yourself. This energy helps you become someone who adapts to life's challenges with grace, even when the external world feels chaotic. In real life, there are some equally real challenges to overcome, such as, even though there is an acceptance of change, this line doesn't guarantee that the transformation process will be peaceful or easy. There might be times when the intensity of change feels overwhelming or creates internal conflict. While you may naturally accept change, others around you might not share the same perspective, creating friction or tension in your relationships. Acceptance of change doesn't always lead to tranquility. The energy of Pluto can sometimes bring emotional turbulence, and even though you're accepting of change, you might not feel at peace with it all the time. Neptune, in detriment, impermanence, as proof of meaninglessness with its attendant manifestations, depression, delusion, and in the extreme, self-destruction. The fear engendered when change is experienced as impermanence, and the potential for depression. With Neptune in detriment, this energy can make the experience of change and impermanence feel threatening, as if life lacks meaning because of its transient nature. Instead of seeing impermanence as a natural and beneficial aspect of life, it can lead to feelings of loss, confusion, or even hopelessness. There's a fear of the unknown and a tendency to interpret change as something negative or destabilizing, which can lead to negative emotional states like depression or delusion. In its extreme, this line can manifest as self-destruction or a deep sense of purposelessness, especially when one feels overwhelmed by the constant nature of change. The fear of impermanence may create a lack of clarity and a loss of hope, potentially causing one to feel lost, without direction, or as if life has no deeper purpose. It's about the fear of change as meaninglessness. In practical terms, the energy of Neptune in detriment here often shows up as a deep fear or resistance to change. This fear can arise because the constant shift and movement of life are experienced as proof that nothing has lasting value or meaning. Instead of seeing change as part of life's flow, you might feel like it undermines the purpose of things, leading to confusion or a lack of direction. The fear of impermanence can manifest emotionally as depression, anxiety, or frustration. There's an internal struggle between wanting stability and fearing the inevitable change that comes with time. The delusion part of Neptune may cause you to hold on to false hopes or illusions about the way things should be, creating disillusionment when reality doesn't match your idealized view. In extreme cases, the emotional toll of dealing with impermanence may lead to self-destructive thoughts or actions. You might feel like there's no point in trying or that nothing lasts long enough to be worth pursuing, which can lead to apathy, self-sabotage, or even withdrawal from life's experiences. In relationships, the fear of impermanence may manifest, as an example, as a deep fear of loss. You might constantly worry that your relationships aren't permanent or that you or your partner will change in ways that lead to disconnection. The Neptune in detriment influence can make you overly idealize the relationship in the beginning, but as changes inevitably happen, you may become disillusioned and start to believe that the relationship is not meant to be or worth pursuing. This could lead to feelings of emptiness or depression as you perceive change as a sign that things are failing. The fear of impermanence in your relationships might cause you to withdraw, create conflict, or even engage in self-sabotaging behaviors to avoid the pain of loss. Here's another example. In your process of personal growth, you're in a phase of personal transformation, and it's uncomfortable. The changes you're going through might be difficult to process, and instead of feeling excited or optimistic about your growth, you might feel overwhelmed by the impermanence of it all. You could become trapped in a sense that nothing lasts, that nothing is stable, or that the changes you're going through are futile. This could create feelings of depression or anxiety, making it hard to stay motivated or confident in your personal development journey. You might also experience confusion or delusion about what's really going on inside of you, and this might make it harder to make decisions or progress on your goals. The fear of change could lead to self-doubt and even cause you to avoid making the necessary changes because you fear that they'll ultimately lead to disappointment or failure. This placement brings opportunities, like for instance, although this energy can bring feelings of fear and impermanence, the opportunity lies in the ability to transform that fear into strength. By facing the fear of change and recognizing its inevitability, you can build deep emotional resilience and acceptance. Learning to view change as part of the natural flow of life, rather than something to fear, can help you overcome the depression and delusion that Neptune in detriment might bring. Each transformation becomes an opportunity to grow and deepen your understanding of yourself and the world. This energy can be an opportunity to heal deep emotional wounds tied to impermanence. By accepting change as part of life, you can let go of attachments that no longer serve you and move forward with more clarity and strength. On the other side, the major challenge is the emotional weight of feeling like everything is transient and nothing truly lasts. This can lead to disillusionment, hopelessness, and even self-destructive behaviors. The fear of impermanence can sometimes cloud your judgment, leading to a sense of emptiness or lack of meaning in life. Or there may be a deep resistance to change, especially when it feels like nothing has stability. This can make it difficult to embrace necessary transformations, creating internal friction or stagnation. Work on your personal growth to stay aligned with the energy of this placement, avoiding not-self behavior. For an in-depth understanding of this line, Let's listen to Ra-Uruhu's words. I quote, "Here, we get to the roof of the house and we are not in the house anymore. The nature of the hexagram is going through a transformation." This is one of those lines that I kept running into so often because it can be depressive and because we had Neptune activating the other side of it. Therefore, we have a whole generation of people in the early 1990s that went into all kinds of severe depressions due to the nature of this line. Consider that the tribe is essentially materialist, even when it is being communal at the other side. Communalism is all about coming up with a bargain so that everybody has what they need. Tribal life is, by its very nature, material. This aspect of the tribe, moving up to the instinctive stream, is what is essential. It is the ability to recognize what will work, what change to accommodate, in order that the continuity of the material success of the tribe can survive, so that we need not be afraid of failure. The fear of failure is a theme that we all live with. It is a global theme. This deep sense that we cannot fail, that we must have the material that we need. When you get to the sixth line, it is kind of like, well, I am not really interested in just that. There must be something else other than just climbing up the corporate ladder, making our bread and butter, doing our job. The sixth line is called tranquility. Change is inevitable. The projection of power in the 32nd hexagram is trying to make sure that transformation can take place, that there won't be a failure. It is trying to be conservative, trying to continue things. This line says, yes, okay, but everything changes. Nothing stays the same. Everything just keeps on changing. Am I supposed to control that? The sixth line is not about control anymore. It is a need now. The need to calmly face impermanence. Pluto exalted, an underlying acceptance of change that may or may not lead to tranquility. It may or it may not. On the other side, Neptune in detriment. Impermanence as proof of meaninglessness, with its attendant manifestations, depression, delusion, and in the extreme, self-destruction. The tribe is meaningless. This business is meaningless. Why should I spend 20 years of my life investing in this business when it will fall apart anyway due to changes in the society? Why did I spend all this money making hula hoops? It will change. Why did I get involved with 8-track tapes? It will change. There is this sense of, why bother? Nothing is stable. Nothing will last. I will kill myself. In the White Book, the instinctive awareness to accept change and transformation, or the fear engendered when change is experienced as impermanence and the potential for depression. Whenever you come to the nature of the sixth line, please recognize that it is always looking for the next hexagram. The next hexagram is the 50, the values, and the first line is the immigrant. The whole thing for the sixth line to recognize is that transition is always there and they will always be the immigrant. This is their whole thing. These are not the people to establish a business that is going to last forever. They have to be very clear that all of this is coming anyway. They are here to ride the wave so that they can be the immigrants that can establish the new values out of what the change brings. These people can be visionaries. They can look ahead and say, I will not do this because I can see what is coming. What is coming is either going to frighten them or it gives them a sense of tranquility. Yes, I can see the changes coming. I don't want to get involved with this. I can wait to discover what my values will be and what is coming. End of quote. Now let's move on to a different perspective to see how the 32nd gate sustains or communicates the purpose of life through the crosses of incarnation that are established when the conscious sun is placed within the 32nd gate, 32nd hexagram, right angle cross of the Maya 3, consisting of following gates, 32, 42, 62, 60, and people whose inner knowing and use of detail guide their ability to properly evaluate and inspire material development, maturation, and expansion. This cross has the energy of survival by looking for value. It can contain a strong strain of survival, of saving and storing things. It is energy that is looking for value in others and in materials. You are here to bring these values together in a way to ensure survival of the self and the species. Juxtaposition. Cross of conservation, consisting of following gates 32, 42, 56, 60. Wary risk takers guided by the value of continuity or duration, who conserve our resources to ensure survival of future generations. The energy of your cross is to conserve and preserve life. This may manifest in many ways, including some that are fearful. You may be driven to prepare for disaster, stocking food and water. You may be passionate about the environment and move to serve or be involved with conservation organizations or movements. You are here to offer your voice to preserve life. Just be sure not to get caught up in the fear. While the fear is an important driving force to conserve, it can become overbearing and detract from the good of the cause. Stay grounded in your core purpose. Left angle cross of limitation 2, consisting of following gates 32, 42, 56, 60. People who see impermanence as a limitation, as a pressure, such as on business or industry to value products based on their practicality and their ability to withstand the test of time. Your cross has the energy of knowing limitation in order to survive or achieve preservation. This is based out of energy that is fearful, and at times it can speak in terms that there is no use in trying. Your gift is that you can identify and communicate about the limitations that are needed to be successful. Your liability is that with duality, the fearful side can be strong and take over, and can lead to depression of yourself or others. Strive to keep your mindset positive. I hope this material is helpful and supporting for the development of your human design knowledge. Please share if you enjoyed listening, and subscribe if you want to be notified about any new posting of informative learning materials regarding human design. Thank you.